Hi. So this video, I'm going to do a little trial run of using the whiteboard and trying to go into what I call perception-based physics. And it's using um, having your worldly understanding, your scientific understanding, your intellectual understanding. You want to try and get that understanding so that you remove all abstractions and you only think in terms that you have experienced, right? So with perception-based physics, you try and like remove all sort of book knowledge or assumptions or abstractions or data gathered through non-sensory means, right? Um, and so what we're gonna do is first we're gonna simplify the body down to an object, and then yeah, we're just gonna see how things work, right? So we're gonna make models of the existence. We're going to make a model of existence, but it's going to be entirely perception based. So the same way that science makes a model that has predictive values, like we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so the first way that we make a model is through observation, experimentation, testing, right? So I'm going to use only widely accepted experimental data here to create the model. And as I create the model, I'm only going to do it off of things that I've like perceived. So we know from experimentation that the human body is composed of chemical reactions happening in water. So at the lung barrier, you have oxygen. Oxygen goes into the blood, into the body water. And while that oxygen is in the body water, energy is taken away from it and it's run through cellular activities. And then it leaves as CO2. Right, so it's just the whole body is just air going into water. That's the entirety of the metabolism. And then all of that water it's connected through like a series of tubes. But it's all one single body of water. The surface area of it has been distorted versus what you would see it at rest by the vasculature and the like gel scaffolding and stuff like that. But it's all one single body of water. And so all of the that's where all of the metabolism is in the single body of water. So then that's scientific consensus as far as I know. Like if I'm wrong, somebody call in and tell me, right? The next observation, and we kind of figured that out from observation. We cut people open and it was like it's the whole thing's wet. Like the entire thing is wet. All the life processes are wet. Like we tested it. We cut it open. We did science. The next thing that we did was that we studied sense organs and nerves and stuff like that. So we found that when you see when you see a person, the eye comes into contact with that person somehow. Like there's energy emanating off of the person, and it hits the eye, and that energy, that vibration from the person vibrates the eye, and then the eye starts to vibrate the entire metabolism that we were talking about earlier. All of the chemical reactions that like make up the sum total of the body. The sense organ starts to vibrate that at a different frequency based off of what it sees. And then that vibration goes in, and it goes especially to the brain, and then the brain changes its vibration of the chemical reactions, like the rate and the frequency and the oscillations of the chemical reactions happening in the water are shifted and changed by the sense organ. And then that creates another person in our experience. And then like we've tested that, and it's like it doesn't seem like we're making the person, or that the person that we're having in our experience is necessarily real, because you can cut if you cut the optic nerve, the sight of the person in our experience goes away, but the person is still there, and other people can still see them. And so that means that our perception, or like our experience of what we see, is somewhere on the other side of what the eye is doing, which seems to be sending signals into here, and changing the rate of the chemical reactions. And then you can also take out chunks of the brain, and then that'll also make the image disappear. But if you cut off like an arm or a leg, or shoot any part of the torso, it doesn't make the image disappear. So like we've tested it, and there's something about the changing the frequency of the metabolism in the body, from the optic nerve to optic centers in the brain. That communication is required for there to be a perception of an image. It's somehow like that part of the brain likely amplifies this signal such that it's seen or noticed. And so that's happening with all the sense organs. So you can summarize the body in like it's like a bag of water like full of air. Like increasingly rarefied air. but it's factually a bag of electrical chemical reactions. I don't know how to draw that, but the electrochemical reactions are all taking place entirely in a single, connected, unified body of water. And so the movement of that water is kind of like the totality of all the reactions happening in it. And then all of those reactions are fundamentally driven by like a force that is similar to air. And so if you, it's like we're obviously identifying as that metabolism, I guess is where I'm going. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. It's hard. This is trippy stuff. To tie all that together, like we know that perception is happening because of a shift in the pattern of metabolism. Like a change in how all of those electrons and how all those oxygen, how all the ions are flowing. Because it's all just it's just objects surrounded by electricity, like the whole thing. So it's just that shifting, somehow that causes a perception. And it's like whatever it is, like we just know that there's a certain vibration, there's a certain frequency, there's a certain pattern that goes into the body and is amplified by the body, and that pattern emerges as sights, sound, the sense of body, like the whole world. That pattern of metabolism, we're looking at it, and it emerges as the whole world. So we know, like in this scene right here, that all of these perceptions are happening in water somehow. They're going on inside of water. And so we can draw that. And this is where it gets kind of cool, because it maps a lot of stuff that happens with science, but it also really, really maps different consciousness states and different things that you can do, like with exercise. So you're here, and then this is the bag of air. You can simplify the entire body to a bag of air, like with with structures embedded in it, like bones, fascia. Like it's just that the body is a fractal bag of air. That's all that keeps happening, is everything just keeps breathing. You breathe, the blood breathes, the cells breathe, the organelles breathe. And it's like you breathe the air, the blood breathes just the oxygen, the cells breathe, the organelles breathe just the electrons. Other parts of the cells just breathe the ATP, right? So I'm going into abstraction here. So that like cellular theory is kind of an abstraction that we've done. Like I've seen it in microscopes, right? And you can kind of run these tests to kind of like observe where the oxygen's going or where the carbon is going. And so we see all these processes down there. So you can do perception-based physics with cellular biology, actually. But it's just basic. It's just a fractal airbag. So since it's just a fractal airbag, it's like just represented as a circle. And so that's all the air, and then it's in a body of water. Like it's a body of water, and even though it's distributed into a fractal network of tubes and hydrogels, it's still one body of water. And so it's gonna move like that body of water, and it's the only reason it's moving differently is because it's running into the structure that's embedded in it. So the embedded structure makes the body move not exactly like a bathtub, but it pretty much will move like a bathtub, especially if the structure's floating. If you're centered in the fluidic presence of the body, then the structure's floating, so it's like you just move like a tub. Like it could be summarized as it's just a body of water. So it acts like a very normal looking body of water, even though the fractal tube network has like expanded the body into a human shape. It's like inertial physics is just the same as a bathtub sloshing. So you have a fractal tube network of fluid that you can just summarize as a tub. Simplest body of water possible, just for understanding. And then you have the metabolism, which is just a fractal network of breathing of air. And then that puts that puts vibrations into the air-water boundary. Like this is it zoomed in. So it puts the perceptions, the thoughts, everything that air that is in the water, there's a surface to it. There's a boundary between the oxygen or the electrons or like whatever's kind of dissolved in the water. There's a boundary between it and the water. Just like there's a boundary between, if you pulled air underwater, there's a boundary between the water and the air, and that's a surface. So there's a fractal tube network, there's a fractal whatever, there's a fractal surface. And that surface changes just based on how the metabolism is flowing. So as nerves fire, as action potentials go, as hormones release, as temperature raises, you can see that all of those things are putting all sorts of different patterns into the fluid surface boundary. And so we observe that, like we kind of know, like we're observing our perceptions. Like we're observing our perceptions, and then we know that what we're observing, if it's a body perception, it's coming from the optic nerve in that way. So we know that we're not any of this, we're the being, like the water, the consciousness, we're the thing within which the perceptions are arising, right? So the looking, the observer is the water, and then it's looking at the vibration of the metabolism bubble. So as the sense organs change how the oxygen and the electrons from the oxygen are being used and funneled through the system, that changes how this air bubble is vibrating, and then that changes the perception. Like we know that's where the perception comes from. And so the sense organs are structures embedded in the bubble surface. It's one of the structures. And so the sense organs receive impressions from the environment, and then they change how the thing vibrates or jiggles. Except there's not an eye out here in the being or in the water. It is looking itself. And so when you find yourself to be looking or whatever, right? It's these pockets of self end up in so this pocket, this is also like a false, this is the false self or whatever, the ego. I don't know, it's like, it's weird being, you don't even understand how you've been mesmerized with it after you're not. Like it's fundamentally empty. Like this is pulling in void. So this is where it gets interesting. Like these mysteries and stuff like that, they're like paradoxes. And so every time you approach it, it's going to be a little different, and then it'll slingshot you away a little bit different. Like it gets trippy. So the water can do any number of things. So and it does them fractally. These things can happen, but all of these things can happen inside of each other, on top of each other, nested in any order, any combination possible. All like it's crazy, right? So with water, it you obviously have it waving, right? It can also go in a current. It can go in a little vortex swirl eddy thing. It can carry sound waves through it. So it can like an impulse, like a sound wave can go through it. It can I mean that's enough really, right? So it can hold bubbles. So when you have that air bubble in you that is you in being, like being will have like cycles of time, or other things. And so our being is usually near the surface of reality. Right, so you can do this metaphor, and it's like you can use it as your, you can replace the, even though we know that like this is your metabolism making your perceptions, and your looker, your eye, is in being. The awareness within which any of your perception might arise. Right, so it's not located anywhere in there. That's not where your eye is. Like this isn't you. Like you're the being that the life force is inside of. The life force is not you. The body is not you. But for whatever reason, you can just, it is you. And so then you can start using this metaphor just from you can totally be you, basically. So when you have a cycle of time, you tend to come up out of the water as you like ride a wave. You tend to emerge out of being. And if you breathe in a ton of the air, like if you kind of oversaturate with air, and so the air is like everything of the surface world, everything that's not being. So basically material, perceptions, right? Sense pleasure, like all of this stuff that's the perception, like when you try and get like more and more and more of that to expand or whatever, it you can get actually stuck to the surface. Like your consciousness becomes super buoyant towards nothingness, towards emptiness. Like if you chase empty pleasures, that's basically a type of breathing that inhales a ton of the surface world. And the surface world outside of being is emptiness. Bringing that emptiness into awareness is what creates perception. Right, so that's a good thing, and that's all the whole world. Like the whole world is created through the breath of drawing the emptiness into the body. And then the contact between the emptiness and the body is what creates the entire world, all perceptions, like the body, and the whole world is contained in the vibrations of that metabolism. All of the information gathered from the sense organs to create this physical sensation, and then the idea of the world, all of that's in the metabolism on the surface of that sphere. So that's cool. But then if you try and go into that, like if you go into that if you try and breathe, if you try and breathe more of the perception in or chase where that's from, then the only thing you can do is take in more emptiness. That causes you to float towards it. And so then you get part of your perception becomes out of being, right? And that's the part that when it comes out of being, it can start perceiving as a separate self. So the sense organs that are out of being will actually start putting a vibration into that air bubble, even though it's still alive. It's a bubble, it's wet, the whole thing's wet. It's not out of being, it's floating. Like nothing's ever out of being. But the sense organs are perceiving things through emptiness, through void, out of being. Even though they're in a thin layer of being, they perceive things that are outside of being. They perceive the world through emptiness. So that's what happens when you become overly materialistic, is that the sense organs actually start perceiving the world through emptiness. And that creates the world of like separate objects. Or no, sorry. It's like I only have to draw like two things, and I can't even get the scale right. So if you've over inhaled and you're stuck on the surface, the sense organs perceive, oh, that's a wave over there. They sense an object in being, and they sense it. They sense it like as a separate thing, an event over there, a disconnected whatever. So spiritual practices are essentially the exhalation or the dissolving, the letting go of the sense world. Differing practices of like humility or discernment, beauty seeking beauty, seeking truth. That causes the I, or the vantage point of the self, to drop into being, away from the surface. So you need a snorkel to do this, basically. So you kind of have to do it through the nose as a snorkel, but it's basically a snorkeling effect. Like the humility is kind of a snorkeling effect. As you release the emptiness inside of you, basically, you let the air out, then you see the same, it's the same exact world. Nothing's changed. But this one, the sense organs are perceiving the world interconnected. And so when they perceive the world interconnected, there's a loss of the anxiety of separation, the sense of separation, the sense of I am not you, or this is not, like that goes away. And the sense organs perceive that. They're perceiving the exact same world. The sense organs change radically, but not enough that you would ever scientifically detect, really, right? Because this one's sensing things through air, and then this one's sensing things through water. It's like both mediums are transparent. So it's like if your vision is going through your consciousness, your awareness, your attention, or it's not, it's going through nothingness, it's going through inattention, it's like that's almost imperceptibly, like you would never know. So like if you were to try and describe the difference, it's like in any one locus, you don't know. But if you do it everywhere on multiple dimensions, your eyesight, your feeling awareness, your every single part of the body, it if it's going through awareness, like that means that the body has significantly dropped down into being. And then if you're over buoyant, you're pinned to the surface. So you have to like have techniques where you get along with what's happening with the surface. You have to really maximize and kind of like rotate and have good balance and coordination with surface events in order to move or manipulate your body how you want. If you drop down below the surface, you don't need any of that to do, like, there's no relationship anymore, you're free of it. Which, if you sucked at harmonizing with the waves, then being free of them might be awesome. But like, if you were awesome and you were like definitely capitalizing on what life has given you, then becoming free of that might be disorienting. I'm a swimmer and I've been in water my whole life, so I was a little bit of both. The water, or being, like, awareness, is love, right? So agapic love is choosing to sink into the water of being. Familial love is kind of like the wave of family washing over you, pressing you down into being. It's something that it kind of like, it still forces you into being. Then you could have like passionate or erotic love, and that would be like getting sucked into a whirlpool maybe, or like just a wave comes up on you and overwhelms you and pushes you underwater, and then it goes off again. So there's basically events in life. Sometimes horrible events. Like you could view like a whirlpool or getting sucked underwater, if you're surfacing, as something horrible. Like life just dunks you. Like it could be falling in love or it could be dying. And so it's like any of those things that like crack the heart open, that's being submerged into being. So I went on a tangent, but that's what's cool about this model, is that like you could get it more detailed and really tease out like what the vibrations are doing, of like, oh, how does this perception arise or whatever. But like, frankly, it's like, who cares? Like, we kind of know in general what's happening. We know that there's a vibration in our metabolism that is mirroring the outside world. And then we know that we're fractally intertwined with it. So it's like, if you were to draw this correctly, it'd be a fractal sphere. Oh my God, like crazy mathematical thing. It's incomprehensible. Oh my God, we'll never comprehend it. It's like, no, it's a fractal. Just represent it. So a symbol, that's what the symbols are doing. That's like Peugeot's thing, right? And then in reality, it's a fractal. And then that can be, both of those can just be summarized as objects. So it's you either have a sphere, you have an object. A fractal is either an object or it's like an environment. It's like a tub. It's a reality. It's a medium. It's either an object or a medium. And so then the mediums are usually fractally expressed, like bent into tubes so they can take on a particular performance, but the mediums are all one body. So the water is the medium of the body. The water is the environment that the body is in. The body is air. So it's an air bubble in a medium, and so that medium has a surface. So the medium supports waves, currents, etc. And then you can look from different places, basically, right? So all you know is that you're looking is at a bubble in reality, and you know that you're the surrounding environment. You know that you're the medium. That's the other thing that's perceptible about this, is that you know that you're the medium. Most people don't think that's special, but you can do the experiment right now. Are you the perception, or are you the medium within which the perception is arising? Right? So it's like, you know that the looker is coming from the medium. And we know that the medium is water, experimentally, scientifically. Like, so we know that our eye, our awareness from our first experiment of like, where is it? It's like, oh, it's the medium. Is it the object or the medium? It's the medium. Unless you get really softy, loosey-goosey listening, and then it can kind of be the object and the medium, right? But unless you're being soft, loosey-goosey, you're the medium. And so we just have to look at what are the vantage points within that medium. Well, one vantage point is on the surface. So if you have sense organs in your bubble, which we know we do, changing the vibration of the bubble, we know that the sense organs, they never leave the medium, they're always wet, but they can come right up to the edge of the surface of the medium. They can sometimes have a thin thing, and they can look out. And so if you're stuck to the surface, the sense organs are able to look out into nothingness. Basically, that means they're able to be distracted. They're able to operate absent-mindedly. They're able to operate without consciousness. And when they operate without consciousness, they're wired into the metabolism, and they change the frequency of the metabolism. They change the vibration on the bubble, the fractal air bubble. They change the vibration. So when they're looking into nothingness and they're seeing separate object, that changes the vibration of the air bubble. By letting go of nothingness or becoming, sinking into being, falling into love, by adhering to what is real, like the being is real, the consciousness is real. So by adhering to that, or by falling into love, by losing attachment to the surface, right? Like as the looker, like the instant, even though you're the whole thing, the instant that you I identify, the looker is suddenly there, or then that's where the metabolism is, or that's where the identity is. So as long as we're talking about somebody, that's what I was saying. It's like you can kind of point to the truth. Like I can kind of point to the truth of being everywhere and the looking coming from nowhere, but I can't handle it at all or talk about anything without creating an identity, which is the original false empty self to begin with. But it's all I can reference. But it works just fine. Like it's perfect. It's like perfect. Everyone goes, oh, it's not the ultimate truth, it's just a bubble. No, it's perfect. It's perfect. You can use it. You can use it to find truth. You can use the fractal air bubble body to find truth, even though it's like it's an isolated, separated bit of surface submerged in being. Like even though it's not the ultimate truth that it's submerged in, it's still perfect. So it can be used as the observation point just as much as consciousness itself. The body is so perfect that it can be used as the point of location with just as much legitimacy as consciousness itself. And so as that person falls into being, then their sense organs perceive the world through being and through connectedness. And this sensation through that medium changes the entirety of the world. Ever so slightly. They genuinely live in two different worlds, but scientifically the only thing that you could study is the surface, some part of the fractal surface. The fractal surface can just be summarized into a normal surface, which if you look at the ocean, it's a fractal surface. right? And it's super fractal, what I was trying to do earlier, but I forgot because this is so spacey. Is that it's like, it's crazy fractal. You can have a wave, and then on that wave is it's like, oh, there's a whirlpool riding the wave. Or there's a wave going that way, and then, oh, a current too. Or a current going that way. And they all just are a wave on a current. Like, oh my God. They can just all, oh, and then there's a whirlpool there. Oh, as the current goes by, there's fractal whirlpools coming off of the whirlpool. Like, the water behavior is crazy. And you can see all that in your bathtub. But yeah, the false self that's like totally okay to be a self is the this and the whole world, all the perceptions. That's the actual self. And then the enlightened state is that stuck on the surface versus the one that's in love. And then it's the exact same reality. And the one dropping into love is the salvation, is the kingdom of heaven. And being stuck at people stuck at the surface need to change what's going on to try and make that surface thing more pleasurable, but it's just not. It's like the background anxiety of the sense organs operating through emptiness. That's what causes it to be a hell. It's not anything that the waves are doing that causes it to be a hell. The hell is that the sense organs they're looking through, they're operating unconsciously. When the sense organs operate unconsciously, they're literally imbuing the metabolism with hellfire. Suffering, separation, anxiety, and then no matter what happens, that hellfire is in the background of the sense organs, like operating through the air. And then if you fall into love, and so this is what causes like the drug seeking behavior and other stuff, is like if you're stuck on the surface, you want a wave to crash down on top of you, or you want something to suck you down to like quench the fire of your being, or right. And knowing that it's all imaginary, the fire, the pain, the suffering, the horror thing of it, that actually helps a lot, because it's like you're not actually out of being. So even if you can't change anything, it's like you're fine. Yeah, the sense organs, like if you don't change something, the sense organs are going to imbue the experience with a hellish quality. But you're fine. Don't worry about it. But if there's enough detachment that you're down here, then that fire is like extinguished, because this is water. So that's why mindfulness is cool.